All right, welcome everybody to Farm Payroll 101. Glad you could make it. Welcome to those who are listening on the recording as well. My name's Ben Zoba. I'm the beginning farmer educator. And I know many of you in attendance here, but for those who I haven't met, happy you're here and part of this workshop. We got some great presentations lined up for you, so I hope you get something out of it. I'm just going to give a quick 5-minute intro to the series and about new entry. But one thing we do is we kind of take attendance by your Zoom name. So if your name is at all different than the name you registered with, you can go click on participants and change your name, or you can private message Sydney with your full name. We just want to make sure we can get you some follow-up resources, the recording of this, and any slides that we might be able to share with you. So yeah, that would be helpful. And all of our presenters like questions. So Sydney, my associate, will be helping me monitor the chat. I'll try to keep an eye on it. But feel free to post questions in the chat, or if you'd like, at the end of each presentation, there will be a time for questions and answers. So don't hesitate to unmute, share your comments, questions. We like interacting with personalities, so don't hold back. Don't let the mute button get in your way. Obviously, you've probably heard the book. This is being recorded, and we'll make it available to folks, or if you want to revisit anything so you don't have to take notes, that'll be accessible to you. The plan for the workshop is I'll give this intro, and then I'll hand it over to Francesca Gallo from Legal Food Hub, and she will introduce Douglas Sweeney, and they'll go till about 6:45, and then Marie Donahue is going to hop on, and she'll talk about using their payroll service. And then last but certainly not least will be Jeff Benton from Orange Circle Farm, who's going to walk you through how he does his own payroll. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy the presentations. If you're not familiar with New Entry, we're based in Beverly, Massachusetts, and we've got an incubator farm and a whole various branches of our organization, but our basic goal is to train the next generation of farmers. And we do that in various ways with courses, workshops, our incubator program. We also have a food hub. If you're in the kind of North Shore area and are interested in selling wholesale to our food hub, I can get you in contact with my coworkers who manage that, but we aggregate from various farms. We have a CSA, and we also sell into some schools and hospitals and some places that might be more difficult for a small farm to access. And then we also have a national outreach program we call the Field Network. So we try to cooperate with other incubator training programs and apprenticeship programs around the country so we can all share best practices with each other and try to improve how we serve the next generation of farmers. Finally, or not finally, but next, there will be a brief survey that will pop up when you sign out of Zoom. 7 questions, shouldn't take more than 5 minutes, maybe 4 minutes. It really helps us out if you can fill that out. Our funders like to hear if the workshop's having an impact, and it helps us kind of figure out what we need to include in the next 2 of this 6-part series. We're in part 4 here. If you weren't in either of the first 3, Sydney and my coworker Emily are making sure the resources are available. We've got them all recorded. So just by being registered here, you'll be in the loop and have access. Eventually, everyone's going to get access to all 6 recordings. But yeah, we got a good one lined up for you this month, and then next month we're going to dig deeper into the legal implications of hiring. And I think we called it Farm Employment Laws Made Simple. And I believe Sydney's going to put in the chat the link to that if you do want to register to make sure you're getting the reminders for that. Some other upcoming events. Francesca is going to share something that Legal Food Hub's putting on, a really great winter webinar series. So I'll let Francesca talk about that. Jeff, I saw on your website, Orange Circle Farm, the CSA registration will soon be opening in January 24th, I believe, and it sounds like you do a seedling sale. So if you're in the Seacoast region and want to connect with Orange Circle Farm, yeah, you can find their website pretty easily. And Jeff, feel free during your presentation to share anything else about anything going on at your farm that you care to. And then finally, the Farm Employment Workshop that Sydney's linked in the chat. Want to thank our funder, Northeast Extension Risk Management Education, for helping us put this workshop on. We're very grateful. Hopefully it helps you all manage risk in the realm of employment and payroll. I think that's all. Yes. All right. That's it for my slides. Now I'm going to hand it over to Francesca Gallo, who's the program coordinator at Legal Food Hub. And if you don't know about Legal Food Hub yet, you're in for a treat. It's a great organization, and Francesca will tell you about it. And thank you, Francesca, for joining us and all the good work you're doing.
Thanks, Ben. Move all of the Zoom things out of the way. Great. So as Ben said, my name is Francesca Gallo. I'm a program coordinator for the Legal Food Hub. I'm based in Providence, Rhode Island, but our program serves all of New England. So the Legal Food Hub is a free service, and you connect eligible food farmers, food entrepreneurs, and food and farm organizations to attorneys in our volunteer network for free assistance on transactional legal issues. I'm not an attorney, and my colleague, Mary Lovell, who co-runs the hub, she's not an attorney, but we match folks with attorneys, and we have attorneys at more than 150 firms, law firms around the region who volunteer their services through the Legal Food Hub. The program's been around since 2014. We are a project of Conservation Law Foundation, and we operate in all 6 New England states, as I mentioned. So if you are looking to apply for assistance through the Legal Food Hub, we try to direct folks to our online application whenever possible. We do also have a voicemail inbox, so if using a computer isn't accessible to you, you're welcome to get in touch with us that way. And the online application just asks for basic information about you and your legal matter, and it kind of walks you through our basic eligibility guidelines, which I'll talk more about in a moment. And then once we receive that application, if you are in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, or Vermont, you'll get an email from me. And if you're in Maine and New Hampshire, you'll get an email from my colleague Mary, and we'll reach out to set up an intake phone call, which we use to learn more about you and your legal matter, so that we can write up a case information that will then circulate to attorneys to find someone to assist you. And as long as you and your business are still eligible for the hub, you can come through as many times as you need for different legal issues. We do work legal issue by legal issue. So we'll match you with an attorney for each different legal issue that you have. And the kinds of matters that we assist with are transactional, and they're kind of projects that have a distinct beginning and end. And so in the area of employment, that often includes answering questions about employment law, writing independent contractor contracts, reviewing an employee handbook, anything like that. But more broadly, our attorneys can help write or review farmland leases, help you select and form an entity for your business, review contracts, help you with a trademark, really any kind of matter that goes into running your business. The main thing that we can't assist with is litigation. So any matters that involve going to court and kind of many, many hours of work, it's just tough to find attorneys to do them for free. But we're always happy to give you referrals to attorneys who would have the right expertise to assist you, and you can reach out to them about paid assistance. And in terms of timeline, we try to respond to applications we receive within 2 to 3 days, and then we'll generally schedule that intake call for 1 to 2 weeks out. And then after that intake call, it generally takes around 2 to 4 weeks to match you with an attorney. So we're not great for super time sensitive issues. We'll, always do what we can, and again, can always provide referrals, but you just want to plan ahead a little bit if you know that you have a project that you need to work on. Um, and so eligibility. And so, as I mentioned, we also serve food entrepreneurs and food and farm nonprofits, but I'm just sharing the eligibility for farmers, but you can read the full eligibility on our website. So your farm needs to be growing food for people as the main product that you're producing. You do need to be a farm business, so we don't support hobby farmers. Your net business income, so after expenses, needs to be less than $40,000. And that is new. It has been $30,000, but we hadn't updated it since 2014. And we figured probably good to bump that up by $10,000. And then the annual household income of any owners of the business needs to be less than 400% of the federal poverty level. And so these are those numbers. So it's based on household size. And if you're not eligible for our services, again, we're always happy to give you referrals. And we also have available for anyone to access on our website a free resource library. And it covers a range of topics like these ones listed here, kind of similar to the types of topics that we can provide attorneys to assist with. So these can be helpful resources for kind of getting your feet under you for understanding a legal issue or taking some first steps. It's a mixture of written legal guides and recorded webinars, and a lot of them are translated into Spanish as well. And then this is our winter webinar series. Sending a link that I prepped in the chat for that. So this is starting on February 5th, and we'll have 5 different webinars. And that link will take you to our website, which has more in-depth descriptions about the webinars and the different speakers. And you can register for those on Zoom. And recordings of those will also be shared out with anyone who registers. So, if you know that you can't make it, but you'll want to watch it, you can still register and see, make sure you get that email. And that is pretty much it. So I think they already shared in the chat the link to our website. My email is fgallo@clf.org. So I'm going to have to hop off a little bit early, so I'm happy to answer any questions now, or you're welcome to reach out to me with any questions. Yeah, are there any questions that I can answer before I hand it off to Doug?
Question in the chat, is eligibility limited by geography, only New England?
Yes, for pro bono legal services, it's just New England. That resource library is available to anyone. And it kind of varies in how state specific it is, but yeah, it's just New England. Great. Well, then I will pass it over to attorney Douglas Sweeney of Holland and Knight. Doug is a litigation attorney. He's based in Boston and focuses his practice on labor and employment law and compliance. And his firm, Holland and Knight, is one of the many firms in the Legal Food Hubs Pro Bono Network. So I'll pass it over to Doug.
Great. Thank you, Francesca. Let me just share my screen. All right. So as Francesca said, my name's Doug Sweeney. I'm an attorney at Holland and Knight in their Boston office, and my practice mostly focuses on labor and employment. I do litigation, but I do a lot of advising of businesses and counseling businesses in compliance with labor and employment laws. And so, as this slide says, I'm going to try to, in the short time we have, give everyone a sort of 30,000 foot view of the relevant employment laws that will apply to anyone who has any employees. Even if you have just one employee, some of these laws do apply to you. And as you'll see in my presentation, as you grow, more and more laws become applicable. So today I'm going to mostly focus on Massachusetts laws. However, most states have analog versions of these laws, particularly within New England. So this can, even if you're not in Massachusetts, this hopefully will help you flag some issues that you might have as your business grows. So this is a quick overview of where we'll be heading in the next half an hour or so. We'll be talking about family and medical leave laws, sick time laws, wage laws, employee versus independent contractor classification, which can be a big issue for small employers, and then also important employee thresholds. As I was saying, the number of employees you have, the bigger you get, the more laws apply to you. So I'll flag those thresholds at the end. And feel free to interrupt at any time with any questions. We'll have a question and answer period at the end, but happy to kind of take them as they pop up. All right, so family and medical leave. So in Massachusetts, there is a state family and medical leave law called the Massachusetts Paid Family and Medical Leave Act. Um, and there's also a federal law called the Family and Medical Leave Act. You might have heard of it referred to as the FMLA. Uh, there's some very important differences between these laws, meaning that the um, one of them being that there's different eligibility criteria for the federal law, the FMLA versus the PFML. And the Massachusetts PFML, as the name implies, it's paid, whereas FMLA is unpaid. So here's a overview of the PFML. It can be used for a variety of reasons. In a calendar year, you have up to 26 total weeks of this leave. 12 of it can be used for the birth, adoption, or placement in foster care of a child, to care for a family member with a serious health condition, or a sort of qualifying exigency related to a family member who's a member of the armed forces. Up to 20 weeks can be used for your own serious health condition, and up to 26 weeks can be used to care for a service member who's a family member who has a serious health condition. Crucially, the PFML is um, applicable to virtually every new employee. As long as that employee earned about $6,000 in the previous 12 months, they're eligible for the PFML. Um, as I mentioned, you can kind of pick and choose between, not pick and choose, but you can take up to 26 weeks in the aggregate of this leave. So say you had a new child, you could take 12 weeks of that, and then if you had a serious health condition, you could take up to 14 weeks of that within the benefit year. And each new year, the employees get another 26 weeks. For small employers, oftentimes they allow the state to administer their PFML plan. Larger employers can use a private plan as long as they provide all of the same benefits. So frequently with small employers, they'll likely just be interacting with the Massachusetts Department of Paid Family and Medical Leave, who will administer the leave with some assistance from the employer. Turning to the federal FMLA Act, it can be used for generally the same reasons as the PFML, birth, adoption, or foster care placement of a child, to care for an immediate family member with a serious health condition, or to care for your own serious health condition. As I mentioned, um, employee is the eligibility criteria is substantially different than the state's law. For there, you have to, for the FMLA, you need to have worked for your current employer for 12 months and worked 1,250 hours over the past 12 months. So it's a much steeper sort of criteria. Um, and as you'll see in states such as Massachusetts, where there is its own family and medical leave law, typically the FMLA has less importance, as people will almost always, well, in my experience, will always choose to take paid leave as opposed to unpaid leave. And so the FMLA is unpaid leave. Um, One of the trickiest parts, and where you can see employers stumble with with leaves either under the PFML or the FMLA is when an employee returns to work. Employee uh, family and medical leave is often referred to as job protected leave, which means that when a employee goes out on this type of leave and returns, they are entitled to be returned to the same job or an equivalent job with the same status, pay, and benefits. And it needs to be roughly equivalent. Uh, Employers are prohibited from discriminating or retaliating against employees for taking leave or for requesting leave. And really crucially, with the Massachusetts PFML, there's a presumption of retaliation if there's any sort of negative change to an employee's status within 6 months of them returning from leave or during the leave. So um, that can be really tricky where if someone returns from leave and even if they're a underperforming employee and you want to move on from them, if you do, there's a presumption of retaliation, which can be overcome, but you need to put forward clear and convincing evidence. So if you're ever thinking about getting rid of an employee who is on family and medical leave or who has recently returned from family and medical leave, it can be really important to consult with an attorney to make sure you get everything documented, um, any performance issues documented or any other reasons for the termination documented. So things are handled and you avoid litigation, which unfortunately, can get very expensive very quickly. Uh, one note on confidentiality is that it's illegal for employers to share with other employees the reason for someone's medical leave. So even though it might be obvious, if someone's visibly pregnant and they go out on leave, that might be very clear. But if someone asks, "Oh, where's Jane?" It's best to say, "Oh, she took medical leave," or "She took leave." Um, Another important thing is it's important to keep all documentation regarding an employee's medical leave in a file separate from the employee's personnel file. And I'll talk a little bit later about the importance of maintaining an employee's personnel file. All right, moving on to sick time is that all employees in Massachusetts have the right to earn and use sick time under the Massachusetts Earned Sick Time Law. And sick time can be used for everything that you would think, any sort of physical or mental illness or injury, or to care for an immediate family member with such a illness. It can also be used to attend routine medical appointments or to travel to appointments. It can be taken in partial days, for 2 hours, or it can be taken in full days. Employers, this is where I often see some smaller employers get tripped up, is that you cannot require a doctor's note from an employee unless they take 3 days in a row of leave, then of sick time. Then you can ask for a doctor's note, or some other exceptions, like if they try to take leave within their last 2 weeks of work, or if there are 4 unforeseeable and undocumented absences within a 3-month period. And this is where the number of employees can be important. If you have 11 or more employees, you must offer a paid sick time in Massachusetts. If you have 10 or fewer, you need to still offer sick time, but that is unpaid. And for counting how many employees you have, you should keep in mind that you need to count full-time, part-time, seasonal, per diem, and temporary employees. That counts towards that 11 employee threshold. Moving on to the Wage Act, which is another area that I don't want to scare people, but this can not complying with the Massachusetts Wage Act and other states' Wage Act can lead to some pretty adverse consequences relatively quickly, as we'll discuss. So what is a wage? A wage is any hourly wage or salary that's earned through labor or the provision of any sort of service. It can also include any commissions that are definitely determined and payable. So, if you have piecework where, uh, you get a bonus for every 100 widgets you make, that would be something that would be considered a wage. Also, importantly, in Massachusetts, vacation pay is a wage. You're not required to offer vacation time to your employees, but if you do, uh, it is considered a wage that needs to be paid out, just as anyone's hourly wage or their salary needs to be paid out. What are not wages are sort of discretionary bonuses or contributions to any sort of deferred compensation plans, such as a 401(k). When do wages need to be paid? You typically need to pay employees weekly or bi-weekly, and the best practice is to pay employees no later than 6 days of the conclusion of the pay period. Typically, we see employers pay on the final day of the pay period. That's probably the best practice, but the Wage Act specifically defines the sort of outer limit of when you can pay someone and still be timely. And here's one of the trickier parts is the payment of wages to terminated employees. So if the termination is voluntary, for instance, if an employee quits, you just need to pay them on the next regular payday, or if there isn't a regular payday, the next Saturday. If the termination is involuntary, if you're letting someone go, you need to pay those wages on the date of termination. And again, wages includes accrued and unused vacation time. And this is really crucial as we'll get into the next slide. If payment is late, even by one day, the employee is automatically entitled to triple the amount of the unpaid wages, plus any attorney's fees or costs that they may have incurred in recovering that. So you can see that can add up really quickly. Just the other week, I was working with a company that let someone go. They paid all of the regular wages out on the date of termination, but they didn't issue a check for the accrued unused vacation until the next day, and there was nothing they could do other than pay triple the amount. So it's very important that you have your T's crossed and I's dotted with that. And in certain circumstances, hopefully not applicable here, there are criminal penalties for violating the Wage Act. Usually that's for willful, sort of intentional violations. But as you can see, the state takes, and most other states take the payment of wages very seriously. The Wage Act also has some record keeping requirements. So you must keep for 3 years for each employee in their personnel file their name, address, social security number, occupation, the amount they're paid each paid period, the hours worked, rate of pay, any wage deductions, and the dates they worked. And also, when you do pay someone, you need to provide them with a pay stub um, that indicates the amount of pay, the hours worked, the rate of pay, and any sort of deductions. And I don't have a slide on this, but as I mentioned earlier, um, with personnel records, so this information would go into someone's personnel record. Massachusetts has a very strict employer-employee personnel file law. If an employee asks for their personnel file or a former employee asks for their personnel file, you're required to provide it to them within 5 days. So it's important that you keep these things maintained and up to date, and that they're in a format that can be quickly shared with an employee should they ask for them. I'm going to speak now on the difference between employees and independent contractors in Massachusetts. As you might guess, Massachusetts has a fairly robust uh, independent contractor misclassification law. Independent contractors So the presumption is that anyone who provides service to an employer is an employee. Um, but if you do want to treat an independent contractor as an independent contractor as opposed to an employee, you must show that the work is done without direction and control of the employer, is performed outside the usual course of an employer's business, and is done by someone who has their own independent business or trade doing that kind of work. That second prong is pretty, I should say you have to meet all three of these prongs in order to consider a worker an independent contractor. That second prong is kind of the big one. So it says if you're a farm and you're employing someone for farm labor, you really can't use that person cannot be considered an independent contractor. They are an employee who is entitled to all of the rights of employees. Excuse me. The sort of example that I'll provide of where you could use an independent contractor is, say you were to hire a bookkeeper uh, to sort of run your books. That would be something outside of the sort of usual course of your business, and something that they likely have their own sort of independent business. You know, maybe they work with you 5 hours a week and uh, a bunch of other employers for 5 hours a week. This can be another issue where you can see a lot of consequences for misclassification. Misclassifying employees as independent contractors on its own is there's no real penalty for that, but it very quickly leads to violations of other laws, such as the Wage Act. Because you likely haven't been making the lawful and proper deductions, they may be paid on a different schedule, and then you're looking at triple damages, um, and minimum wage laws, overtime laws, and the employee personnel file law I discussed earlier. Lastly, we'll talk about the sort of different thresholds um, that are important to sort of keep in mind as you grow. So if you have one or more employees, the PFML and the Wage Act are applicable to you. Six or more employees, anti-discrimination laws come into play. We haven't talked about those today, but a lot of employment laws focused on anti-discrimination claims or discrimination claims. So very small um, employers don't need to worry about that, but you get to six employees pretty quickly, and then you need to make sure that you have you're an equal opportunity employer, and that you're following all that guidelines and not unlawfully discriminating against someone because of a protected class, such as race, gender, sex, genetic information, gender identity. There's a whole list of things that are protected. 11 or more employees, sick time must be paid. 26 or more employees, the Pay Transparency Act comes into play. That's a relatively new law that requires certain employers to, if you post a job, you need to post a salary range, and also requires that employers provide salary information to employees in certain circumstances. If you have 50 or more employees, we're probably not there yet, but that's when the FMLA comes into play, and some other Massachusetts laws, such as the Small Necessities Leave Act. Uh, Confusingly, each law has a different method for calculating the number of employees. So when you get to that sort of level, the state's website, mass.gov, has a lot of really helpful resources, and has a lot of plain English sort of explainers about this. But this might be something where you'd want to reach out to Legal Food Hub on, just so you're getting advised, you're making sure that you're counting employees correctly and that you're being in compliance with all of these laws. So happy to answer any questions that anyone has on this or any sort of general employment law that might be at the top of their mind.
So I was wondering what the laws and regulations are around doing. I know some companies can do sort of what's called a to can do like a unlimited vacation time and unlimited paid leave and time off. And I was wondering what the rules and regulations are around the doing that as a small business and as a farm, and whether that's possible to do.
Yes, it is possible, and it is something you see a lot of employers do for the reason because the reason is then you don't need to pay out PTO when somebody leaves. Because if it's unlimited, obviously that would complicate paying out um, vacation time. So that is allowed. There are some um, quirks, and it can often be an important sort of cultural question because if you leave it up to some employees, they're going to take as much as they can. You can limit it. We say it is often referred to as unlimited PTO, but in reality, it's a reasonable amount of PTO. It's important if you do have that sort of policy that you have it written down and you set the expectations very clearly. But you do see that as an option for um, for some employers, particularly where they don't want to pay out vacation time um, when an employee leaves.
Thank you.
I had, sorry,
Yep.
go ahead.
That's right. I was just saying thank you.
I have two. One I think is quicker than the second one, but the first one is I've seen another business at farmers markets hire somebody to run a booth and call them an independent contractor, saying that okay, they're responsible for that particular market and everything that has to do with that market, and so they're independent. But when you show the requirements, it would seem that that would be a normal function of my business if it's something that I'm doing every week. So that doesn't seem like you could really classify that person as an independent contractor.
It in the sort of short generalized answer, yes, that seems potentially problematic. You could, if going to if selling at a farmer's market is sort of your main source of revenue as a business, then that could potentially be problematic. Again, I'm not offering legal advice here, but anytime you're using an independent contractor, you want to think really deeply about whether this is truly an independent contractor relationship and whether it's a sort of risk reward, cost benefit analysis of whether that's something that you think is worthwhile.
Yeah. And then my second question is I've heard of FMLA, but I had never heard of the state program before. And
Mm.
so am I understanding that I could hire somebody like because you're not allowed to ask people about medical things in interviews, right? So let's say they had a medical issue that didn't come up in the interview and I hired them and then they could choose to go out on the state program's leave. And would I be responsible for paying them?
So, importantly, the PFML, it's funded through payroll taxes
Okay.
and employer contributions to payroll taxes. So it's not it's different than say unemployment, where like you would be paying more directly. Although I know unemployment is paid through the state. It's something like 0.5% of everyone's paycheck in Massachusetts goes to PFML. So that's how they would be paid through that. But
Okay.
yes, essentially, someone could come in, get hired, and uh, say they got hit by a bus and they need to go out on leave the next day. They would be eligible for leave, and they would be paid out by the state.
By the state. Okay, that's good
Yeah.
because it's frightening when you're a new employer to think that you could suddenly double your expenses if you were responsible for it, right?
Yeah, yeah, they're paid through employee taxes and employer taxes automatically.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry, just one kind of
No.
follow-up question I just thought of for my first question.
Yeah.
So as far as doing like can do the same rules apply for doing unlimited paid time off as well as unlimited non-paid time off, or is it just kind of like, or is there different rules and policies that?
Um, when you say unlimited non-paid time off, like just unpaid leave of absence,
I
or
guess I'm just, I guess I'm more thinking of just like if somebody needs to take a medical leave or if somebody needs to like take a vacation time, if that's a paid vacation time or paid medical leave, then is that still, then what rule are there sort of, are there the same leeways as there are with the unpaid time off? It's unlimited it, unpaid time off as opposed to the paid time off. Uh,
well, yeah. So, well, paid time off, I guess. Let's just refer to it as vacation time. So, vacation time does have different rules. It's considered a wage, and it's a benefit that you don't have to offer to employees. Um, Whereas leave under one of these programs, under the PFML or the FMLA or sick time, are things that you're obligated as an employer to offer your employees. Does that answer the question? I'm not sure it did.
I think so for the most part. I was just So I guess that. So I guess if I was doing like a, if I was doing like a paid unlimited time off, it would just be whatever time off they have would be just a normal wage. Then, if I understand that correctly.
Yeah,
And
so if you were doing unlimited vacation time, let's call it, yeah, then and under your policy it's paid, then yes, you would have to pay that. Um, if you offered some sort of unlimited unpaid vacation time, you would have to honor that, but you wouldn't have to pay for it. So you have a lot more leeway with vacation time or time taken under time away that's not a job protected leave than you do if it's job protected leave.
and
Nice.
for sorry, for leave, for like a, for a leave, it would be a different sort of like if you're doing a paid unlimited leave.
So if it's leave under one of these laws for a family or medical reason, that's when the law is going to kick in. If it's just time away from work, vacation time, then it's going to be much more up to what sort of policy you craft. So I think it's best to think about it as sort of legally required leave that you need to give, and then leave that you're giving out to your employees as a choice, which would be the sort of vacation time.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I probably didn't word that very well.
No, no problem at all.
Great. We have a couple of questions in the chat.
Sure.
Excellent presentation, by the way, Doug.
Oh, thank you.
But from John, it seems like all the wage and record keeping requirements are based on assumption of hourly employees. How are those record keeping requirements different for salaried employees who get a fixed amount each pay period?
Yeah, so you would still that's a good question because they are sort of geared towards that. But if you've ever um, had been paid on a salary yourself, you still do get a pay stub that indicates the sort of dates and the pay period, and then your sort of the amount you've received, the amount of deductions you've received, and your salary. So you wouldn't. So oftentimes you'll see on a pay stub for a salaried employee, it'll say, if it's paid biweekly, it'll say, 80 hours for the 2 weeks worked. Um, I, I wouldn't, you don't have to go crazy about being, if you were to just say, hey, this person worked from January 1st to January 15th, that would be fine, but you would still need to have their rate of pay and all the deductions that were taken out of their paycheck.
Awesome. Another question in the chat. Janelle has a question about employees applying to wait period before new employees can utilize the farm's PTO policy? Are there certain guidelines around how to set that X day wait period? For example, we are planning on offering 5 days paid time off after July 1st, but not clear on the legality of that. The farm is in Maine, by the way.
Okay, yeah. So just speaking generally, I'm not offering legal advice here, but generally in Massachusetts and in my experience in other states where I've advised employers, you can have a waiting period for PTO. Uh, Again, PTO virtually everywhere is not legally required or regulated by the state, and it's really just something that employers can offer employees as a perk. You're not required to offer it, but if you do offer it, then you need to sort of abide by what you've agreed to. And in some cases, as in Massachusetts and in a number of other states, it's considered a wage. So if you do promise it, then you need to pay it. So you have a lot of flexibility with vacation time and or PTO time, however you want to refer to it as. But it's important that your policies are clear and you sort of understand the implications of what you're offering. But a waiting period for PTO is totally fine. But again, as we saw, there's some types of leave that you can't have a waiting period for, such as PFML. But again, under the FMLA, there is essentially a 12-month waiting period. So vacation time just is more up to you, but make sure you have a good and clear policy.
Very helpful.
I'm sorry. Didn't mean to.
Yeah.
So as far as meal times and breaks go, what are sort of like how do you go about doing, like, if you wanted to do like paid breaks during work period times and also paid meal times, how would you go about setting that up?
Yeah, so there are in Massachusetts and I believe federally as well, there are mandated meal and rest time breaks. I believe in Massachusetts, it's if you're working 6 consecutive hours and you're hourly, you need to offer a meal break. I don't have the exact rules off the top of my head, but that's a good question, Annie, and something that I know the state has some good web pages on that if you were to just look up meal and rest breaks in Massachusetts, you'd probably be directed to. Those amounts and times can change a little bit. Um, so that's an important thing to flag, but oftentimes you are required to offer those things to employees.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Very helpful. Do you have time for one more in the
sure,
chat?
yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
great. It says, I'm looking to hire one part-time seasonal employee. Do all these same rules apply?
Well, yeah, as we talked about, the thresholds vary. So the Wage Act would apply, the Paid Family and Medical Leave Act would apply, but then some of the other ones we talked about would not apply. The federal FMLA, anti-discrimination laws wouldn't apply. But yeah, you need to abide by some of those laws, even if you have one part-time seasonal worker.
All right. Any final burning questions for Doug before we let him go? All right. Well, Doug, thank you so much for putting the effort into that presentation and for making the time to join us. Really appreciate it. Grateful that you and Holland and Knight work with the Legal Food Hub to help farmers. And yeah, really appreciate you answering questions and making that presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much for having me, and best of luck to everybody.
Thanks. Keep up the good work, and you're getting some love in the chats. Just FYI.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much.
All right. Take care.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Great. Well, thank you all for those questions. That made it much more interesting for me too. So thank you. I want to introduce our next presenter, Marie Donahue. Thanks so much, Marie, for joining. Marie's a senior business consultant with iSolved. I came across iSolved because some of the farmers we work with utilize them for payroll service. So I reached out, and Marie was kind enough to join us and just give us the rundown of what to think about when considering using a payroll service, and then what's like to work with iSolved. So Marie, thank you for joining and welcome.
Ben, thank you for having me. I was at a 2-hour networking meeting with about 70 accountants right before this. So this is a nice change. I'm coming to talk about payroll, what I do every day. Let me see if I can share my screen here. I'm used to using Teams, but let me see if I can get my screen up here for Zoom. Are you able to see my screen?
Yep. It's not in presenter. Oh, there it is. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So just to start out, my name is Marie Donahue. I have been working in the field of payroll and HR for over 20 years on the operation side. And then the past 10 years over consulting with businesses to help them find solutions for their business, whether it's a startup that may not have an HR infrastructure built. So it was great to have Doug, right before me to kind of tee this up. He went all on, about the different aspects of Massachusetts and federal laws, which is super important. And now how do businesses track all this? How, if you get audited by the Department of Labor, how do you prove you've been doing, what you should be doing? It's a lot. And I believe most of the farms we're talking about here today in Massachusetts, but there's different state laws in all the different states. So I'm just going to go ahead. Here's my contact information. If anyone needs anything at any point or any time or questions after this presentation, happy to share. Just a little bit about iSolved. I won't get too much into the company. Payroll companies, you probably have heard of ADP, Paychex, this Paylocity. iSolve's another payroll company out there. Our quote is, we're big enough to make a difference, small enough to care. So we have 2,800 employees across the United States with over 200,000 clients. We do work with all different industries, and our software solution is built to grow with our clients. As they start to grow, it can grow with you. So today we're just going to talk about some reasons that farms may consider outsourcing payroll and HR rather than trying to keep that in-house. And it's really just to help reduce risk on your business, to save time, and to support your employees, to support your workforce. Some workforce challenges we have seen in the agricultural industry is most recently labor shortages, and of course seasonal workforce swings, and this is your seasonal workforce. High turnover, so constant onboarding and offboarding of employees, getting all that paperwork in. There's required paperwork that you need to have on the federal side, such as an I-9. There's W-4s that you need to collect, so you know what to collect for their taxes. And to stay in compliance with what Doug was speaking on, policies of your business, to be able to communicate that through maybe an employee handbook. That's another challenge. The farms may rely on seasonal labor and migrant labor. And then typically there's a limited internal HR resource for most farms. So payroll compliance and the complexity, which Doug did get into a lot of this, which I'm glad, because I don't like to get into all the legal aspects of it. And he really did a great job deep diving into some of these. But as he stated, there's many different wage and hour laws, and depending on what state you're in, those can differ. Overtime and piece rate calculations, which Doug talked about both of those, exempt overtime in the agricultural industry, which he may have touched upon, but I know he talked about the piece rate calculations. And then, of course, tax filings. So for your federal, state, and your local levels, depending on what state you're in, for example, California and New York have lots of different local payroll taxes, even down to the school zones of what needs to be paid. So that's, one reason to outsource your payroll is to give that over to the experts so they can determine what needs to be paid and do it for you. And it also helps eliminate the risks and the audits and penalties and fines. So if some of these are not being followed, as Doug mentioned, there are high fines and penalties that can come along with that. This I can share with everyone. This is on the federal level of laws that businesses need to follow. So as you can see, if someone has one employee, there's still all of this that you need to comply with. And if not, those penalties can come along. And as you go up employee count, there's additional. And again, these are just federal. So in addition to these federal laws, which Doug did get into many of them, there are state-specific laws, which he also got into for Massachusetts. So when meeting with business owners, one of the most common things I hear is, I don't know what I don't know. And how would you? So Doug mentioned one of the laws that just came out recently in Massachusetts, where on job postings, you need to post a salary range. That just came out in October, I believe. And how would businesses know to do that? But then if you get audited and you don't have that done, then you're being penalized. So Payroll Company is a great resource to be able to proactively educate the business or their clients on what's coming out and then help them get that in place. And again, just some additional reasons why farms typically outsource payroll and HR is the compliance on the payroll processing side to help reduce risks and cost of errors and penalties. And then support for seasonal. And I don't know if Doug got it too much into the H-2A workers. So there's certain documentation, certain records that need to be kept in order to have that classification of workers. So to be able to do that right within a payroll system, you typically you can house their employee profiles, all their documents, their I-9s, right in the electronic file within the payroll system. And then benefits to farm owners. When working with a payroll company, they're the experts. So this is what they do day in and day out. So experts on compliance and guidance when it comes to payroll and HR and some of the state and federal laws. So it gives you peace of mind knowing that you're in compliance if you are ever audited. And if you are ever audited, you have all those records on hand. And then just to improve the employee experience and the trust in your employees that everything is being done correctly. They are being paid overtime if they should be. I don't think Doug got into some of the overtime laws in your industry, but it's important to track. If you have an employee that's out on the field working 20 hours, and then maybe you have a retail shop, you would need to keep track of allocate those hours to different jobs because there are different rules and laws that would apply whether they were out working in the field versus doing something like packaging or your retail shop. He did also mention the W-2 versus contractors. That's important. And that's payroll companies can help you determine that. Most of them can and help track that. And then it's scalable. So if you have a software solution where you may have, an influx of employees coming in during your peak season, to get them onboarded electronically through a payroll system, make sure you have all their documents in a place to hold their records, and so it can, grow with your business. And then working with a trusted payroll provider, it does help reduce audit and penalty risks for you. If you are ever audited and that comes up, you have your payroll company, you have the experts to reach out to and say, hey, I'm being audited for this. What am I going to need? And they can help prep you with that. It helps eliminate stress, I believe, when you have that partnership. There's predictable costs when working with a payroll company. If you hire someone internally to try to take care of payroll, you could be paying them an hourly wage for not knowing, how much they're going to have to do, or and then it's just more time to focus on your crops and your operation when you have those experts behind you. And then here at iSolved, what I do as part of my job when I meet with businesses is go in and just really do a deep dive to see where you are. You stage your business, what you're looking to do in the next year, 3 years, 5 years, and then help find solutions for you, whether it's payroll, HR. We help with hiring, onboarding your employees, and then helping you stay in compliance. Another piece I think we did not touch upon, when you're working with payroll companies, they typically will have a way for you to keep track of your time and labor management, which is important on the record keeping side when it comes to staying in compliance with state and federal laws. And I am going to stop sharing and open it up to questions. Questions about payroll.
Nice. Thank you, Marie. Thanks for catering it to the farmers. It's perfect.
Yeah, no, and it was perfect to have Doug before me. One of the laws he was talking about was to have pay stubs, and to have a way to do that and track vacation time, track, paid time and leave off, and to make sure you stay in compliance with those laws.
Nice. If folks think about questions to ask, I just had a quick one first. If somebody's thinking about reaching out to you to, I don't know, get a quote or something, what kind of documents, what information should they have ready to just share with you to get the ball rolling?
Yeah, so typically we just need to know how many employees you have, how many active employees. And then we get into if you're running weekly, bi-weekly, and if you need help on the HR side, we can discuss that. But typically it's really employee count, and then we go from there with your needs. If a business is new and you're not registered with the state of Massachusetts or whatever state you're in, and for your federal taxes for payroll, we do have a tax department that would help take care of that for you.
Great.
And so it sounds like fees are based on number of employees and not on payroll.
Exactly. Yes. So number of employees. So no matter what your payroll wages are, typically a payroll company is going to charge their payroll fees off of their payroll administrative fees off of how many employees you have. Exactly. And typically it's short money. I would say it's typically short money when it comes just to strict payroll. It can get more expensive when you start adding in HR consulting services. So to have someone like Doug that you're able to reach out to, that's amazing. A lot of payroll companies do offer HR services for a fraction of the cost, which just helps eliminate the need, hopefully, to have to go to a lawyer and spend maybe triple the costs. But on the payroll side, it's typically short money for what you can save on the back end in case you get audited with penalties and such. Just making sure you have all your ducks in a row.
Did one of your screens show that you had some kind of interface? Like, I've seen at some fast food places, the employees come in and they sign into an interface and it keeps track of their hours for them. Is that part of your services?
Yes. So
Okay.
our software, and happy if anyone wants to reach out, I can get into more of that for you. But we do have our software is called iSolved. So it's a human capital management software. So you may hear HCM in our industry, and that's what it stands for. But employees have a username and password where they can log in. They can view their pay stubs electronically. They can request time off. So that helps streamline that process for you. And if an employee is requesting a week off next week and you approve it, it's automatically going to stream over, to the payroll side and help track that for you.
And it's also essentially clocking them in and out.
You
Yes.
can,
Okay.
yes. So you can have the timekeeping aspect right within the software where the employees can clock in, clock out, either through a mobile app or through a physical time clock. So yes, that is an option, and that helps streamline the timekeeping piece for companies.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Got a couple of questions coming in the chat. One is, I'm currently considering payroll service companies versus installing the payroll component in my QuickBooks. Are there specific elements of QuickBooks that I should be aware of that might not meet all my needs?
So what I have seen in the past and clients that I have worked with in the past, typically it's a business. Sometimes smaller businesses will start with QuickBooks. I usually have their accountant then calling me like, Marie, we got a mess here, and asking for us to take it over, because what you're missing with QuickBooks is really the people behind the payroll, and it's almost do it yourself. So you're entering the payroll in the system. It can create the pay stubs, but you need to put in your tax rates. You need to do a lot on your own, and you don't have someone to reach out to. You need to make the tax payments and make sure those are timely. With a payroll company, such as iSolved, most payroll companies, except for the really large ones, you have a dedicated payroll specialist. So when you have questions, you can call them. Typically, you're logging into our software, you're putting in the time and looking at your payroll, but behind the scenes, the payroll company is paying the payroll, withholding the payroll taxes for you and paying them, and make sure they're paid on a timely manner. So that's probably the biggest difference with working with a payroll company versus doing it yourself in QuickBooks.
Related to taxes, another question in the chat. Do payroll services generally pay the state unemployment taxes?
Yes. So typically, I don't know of any that don't. So yes. And then if you're in multiple states, that's another good reason to work with a payroll company, because when you go into another state, you then need to be registered in that state, and the payroll company, and more specifically the software behind the payroll companies, there's a tax engine in there. So they know where the employee is working, where they're living, what taxes have to be taken out of their pay stub, taken out of the paychecks, withheld, and then, applied to those states.
Great. Good questions, folks, and thanks for your answers, Marie. Any final questions for Marie before we let her go? I know you've had a big day going from one thing to this, so we appreciate it. But yeah, any final questions?
Absolutely.
Yes, one. Just you mentioned the shortcomings in some ways of trying to do QuickBooks ourselves. But if we use QuickBooks for all the rest of our bookkeeping,
Mhm.
and we were to hire iSolved or another payroll company to do payroll,
Mhm.
then does your software, your system, would those things get entered into or meld with or merge with our ongoing QuickBooks?
Well, that's a great question. So yes, I know with iSolved, we have full integrations with QuickBooks and many of the accounting softwares. When businesses or clients come over to us during the implementation process, where my implementation team is bringing over all your payroll data, that's one of our questions. What accounting software do you use? Because we're going to make sure we either have the import for you to import that information so you don't have to go in and key it again, or we have to have a seamless integration with QuickBooks. It's a great question.
Awesome. Well, unless there are any final burning questions, Marie, thanks so much for making the time. Great
Thank
to
you,
meet
Ben.
you. Appreciate you making that presentation for us. And
Absolutely. And feel free to share my contact info. If anyone has questions, feel free to reach out.
And if you want to email me those slides, there are folks watching
Okay.
the recording, and I can get those out to people, so it'll have your contact info and some of the other info on those slides. That'd be great.
Great. I will do that. I hope you all have a great night.
You too. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Cool. Thanks again for your questions. All right. Well, last but not least, we've got Jeff Benton, who's the founder and farmer at Orange Circle Farm in Berwick, Maine. It's an organic CSA vegetable and flower farm serving the seacoast communities in Maine and New Hampshire. He runs a fully no-till operation using a holistic approach to soil health, and Jeff runs his own payroll. So you got the perspective from if you want to outsource and have somebody else do it, and Jeff is going to walk you through how he does it himself if you want to bootstrap it. So Jeff, thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ben. Let's get this screen set up. All right. So that was a lot to take in. This is an example of what can happen. I know a lot of people would like to outsource this, but this is it's tangible for small operations. The one we have. So I'm in Maine. We have up to 4 employees at a time, seasonal. So it's not a big operation. We don't have a lot going on. It's pretty straightforward. This is a pretty bare bones approach to payroll. It's not integrated with QuickBooks or anything, but there is a spreadsheet, and it's something that I have put together. I think Sydney's putting that link in the chat right now, so you can open that up and download it and customize it to fit your own needs. But that's a lot. So we're going into our 13th years of farm. I've been doing payroll for 7 of those years. And yeah, I'm a professional farmer, so just keep that in mind. I'm not a CPA. I don't do this for a living. This is just something I do to kind of make it all work on the back end. So here we go. How do we keep time?
Hey, Jeff, I'm having a hard time hearing you a little bit. I don't know if other people are also having trouble with the volume.
It's a little quiet. Yeah, if you can speak either closer to the mic, but yeah.
Okay. I will do my best. Feel free to jump at me again if that's not working out. So we are pretty analog about it. We keep sheets in the barn. People sign in, just clock in. By writing, we don't get too picky about it. Just kind of round it to the nearest quarter of an hour. And then we pay hourly, and we pay every other week. So that's our starting point. There are other options weekly. I think Doug and Marie would both suggested that weekly is kind of the only other common option. Maybe monthly is a more salaried thing. And then we jump into the spreadsheet. So here we have pay periods designated on the left, a wage. So this person would get paid $23 an hour. So then we just come in with that info. We enter in that they worked 75 and a quarter hours that pay period. It already calculated the gross wage. And then there's constant percentages for your Social Security and Medicare withholdings. And this is considered your FICA payments. That's constant. So that's just a formula in the spreadsheet. And it's, 6.2 and 1.45%. So that's pretty straightforward. All you've done up to this point is you've entered in how many hours have been worked. The next part is figuring out the actual federal withholding beyond that. And for that, each employee will be different. They submit a W-4 on the day you hire them. And there's a couple of indications on there that signify what amount you're going to be withholding beyond the FICA withholdings. So one being their marital status, and then another one being if they have checked, and step number 2, check the box, which basically just says you have more than one job, which I know a lot of people that we hire do have more than one jobs because there's winter, there's part-time offerings and such. So we take those indications, we go to this really big, scary publication, 15T. This is on the internet. It's pretty easy to find, but it has a bunch of tables that tell you. And I also have in the spreadsheet itself, I have tabs at the bottom that just kind of have these tables listed out, so you don't have to look up the federal or you don't have to look up the forms on the internet every time. But as we can see, so from the W-4, we know that we are paying bi-weekly, and we know that this person is married, filing jointly, and we know that they have checked the box in step 2. So we are going to be in this column. I know this is really dry stuff, but here you are on a Wednesday night talking about payroll. So here we go. It won't be that long. It's not that complicated. I'm just trying to demystify the process. So I'm going to have a link to this presentation at the end, so you don't have to follow along so tightly, but just kind of understand how things work and where the numbers are coming from. That's my intent. So we're in this column. We know we have a gross wage of the period of $17.30. So that's somewhere between these two. So 130, that's it. That's our number. We go back and we enter in 130 into the federal withholding. The next thing is this federal adjustment, and that is the next part of the W-4. So we're back to the form that this employee submitted. They do have a kid, so they have $2,000 that they've entered here. I just noticed the 2026 version of this is going up to 2,200. So just be aware of that as child tax credits change. Everything's going to change, and it's going to keep changing, and that's just how it's going to be. So you would take that number, and if there's no kids or no dependents, or there's no any other withholdings of any kind, like you don't even have to take on this step at all. But for this one, we have $2,000. We are seasonal, so we know we have 15 pay periods in a year. Like if you're doing bi-weekly for a full year, you can imagine having 26. We have 15. So we basically take this number and divide it by 15, and we get this 133 number, and that goes into here. So that is actually, that's not a deduction, that's actually being, you're not withholding that amount. We'll get to that in just a second. So the next step, keep in mind, all you've done up to this point to figure out your payroll, you've entered in the amount of hours. You found on the chart the federal withholding. This is going to be a constant number, like just to fill out. You can't pay it all at once, but that's going to be constant. So, there's a lot of work on the front end, but once you're here, we're pretty good. And then there's state withholding. New Hampshire, skip this part. You don't deal with it. Massachusetts, I think you have a stable, I think it's like 5%. It's a steady across the board state withholding. So you could make this a formula and this would automatically populate this cell and you could be done. Maine, we're just a little bit trickier, but it's basically the same process as with the federal withholding. Here, you find the publication. It's fascinating. You go back to the W-4 Maine form that the employee filled out on the first day. This one entry here, they have 2 allowances. So you go to the table that this is a married biweekly payment. They have 2 deductions. So we're in this column. Again, you find out which numbers you're between. 18, pretty straightforward stuff. And that goes in here. That's payroll. That's how you decide that you've entered in the hours worked, you've looked up the federal withholding and done state withholding and the federal adjustment. You can do payroll on a lunch break and it's pretty easy. Then you just have to do a pay stub. This is actually the longest part. It takes a lot longer to explain all of this than it does to actually do it on a practical basis. But and I write these out, like I print these out on a page and then, write all of these numbers out and they're all just coming, here's the current cycle and then here's the year to date cycle. Yeah, that's it. So that's bi-weekly, that's paychecks. Everything else up to this is just kind of like documenting all of the withholding with the states and the feds, and then sending money to those folks in the timely manner. So monthly, every month, I think you have up to the 15th. So if you're paying through April, then you have May 15th to file with to put in your federal withholding. And I have done this for a lot of years now. I have made some mistakes, so don't make these mistakes. The trickiest one to get surely I'm not the only one that's ever done this. But your FICA payments, when you're paying those to the feds monthly, those get doubled. That's the employer match. If you don't do that and then you wait till the end of the year and you find out you were supposed to do that, they'll just charge you 10% of all of this that you owe, which, it can add up to hundreds of dollars pretty easily. But then you learn it and you don't have to make that mistake anymore. So these get doubled, and this is going to just populate into the spreadsheet. And then you have to take the federal withholding, and then you add back in this federal adjustment in this case. So in the end, that's negative $3.33. So out of all of that, and of course in this example, June's not even over yet, so we're not paying it, but it is populating it over here. And then you aggregate that through your employees. Each month you would then, it just kind of tallies that up onto your summary tab of the spreadsheet. And then you go to, and I just saw this today, as I say, it's the government, it keeps changing. I've been using this as a way to make your online payments each month. The hardest part is kind of getting it set up so that it recognizes you. So there's lots of security stuff to go through. It's kind of like getting on an airplane these days. But I just noticed this effective October 17th last year that they're updating this to a different system. So if you don't already have through this platform, there's another one. I'm sure it's very similar. But you just go, you enter in all your your business information. It identifies you. You're going to pay towards your agricultural employees, your 943 form, and you're not filling out the form. You're just depositing money towards that form. Yeah, it's just a deposit. And you enter in the amount that you established in your spreadsheet and say that you're doing it now, and it takes it right out of your bank account. And this is once a month. So once you actually get all the things set up, this takes 2 or 3 minutes tops. And then for the state, it's kind of it's the same process. I know in Maine, we do it quarterly with the state. So if you're good with dates, this and organizing all of these things, this is good. If you know in the middle of the season, like you're gonna lose all of it, like just don't try to take it on. That's fine. But I think Massachusetts files state withholdings monthly, and then New Hampshire again, you just don't even deal with it. So good for you. So yeah, we're going back to the spreadsheet. We'll have the state withholdings for, I'm in Maine, so we do it quarterly. So that's what these colors are. So I know that when we get to the end of the green, then that's going to be the time when to do it. And then all of these are populated. This isn't the most complex spreadsheet. It's a lot of copying and pasting and just kind of aggregating. There's no like if equations in here or anything. It's very much just kind of a lot of addition and aggregating across pages. So yeah, same, I've got the monthly version or the quarterly version in here. And that's the same thing. I know in Maine, we'd have an online platform, the Maine tax portal. It's pretty easy to log into. Same thing, you kind of go through and say, I'm making a deposit towards this, and all of that's fine. And then at the end of the year, once you go through, you fill out your form 943 with the feds. That's the one that just kind of like clears up the month by month deposits you've made and kind of accounts for those and any discrepancies in that. And then I know in Maine, there isn't an end of the year form. So for state withholding, maybe that's different in other states. So yeah, this is the 943. It looks intimidating. You just follow it step by step. You do the simple math. It's really just documenting all of the things that you've already done. There's no extra payment associated with this. It's just a document. And then you do have to go through, give your employees their W-2s by the end of January so that they can file their taxes and do all of that stuff. You can do that through the business services online. Again, it's a government thing, so getting it set up and getting an actual login. Sometimes these things with security stuff, it's a lot of, I don't know where they are anymore. They used to be, and it might still be, that like you register and then they mail you a thing, snail mail, and then you come back to it like 3 weeks later and try to finish up. But ultimately you come on here and then you create the W-2 you enter in all the information for each of your employees. It puts it in a thing and then you print it out and you mail it to them. And then your W-3 is just the transmittal form of that. So it's just saying that you did all of your W-2s. It's even shorter. I'm not going to go through it all right now, but that's where you get the forms. Now, as I say, this is the most simplistic version it can be. Once it gets bigger, once it gets more complex, there are things that you may have to do in addition to this. I don't have that experience, so I can't really share it. So this does not include benefits or retirement withholdings, any of that stuff. I imagine it's pretty similar, that it's just, you add a column of deductions in your spreadsheet, but I don't exactly know. Unemployment taxes for the feds and for the state, we're in a scenario that we are exempt from those. I'm the one as the owner who's doing all of any, marketing or delivering or any of those kind of non-agricultural work. So we don't deal with that, but that is a consideration. If you have people working farmers markets, for instance, like that becomes, that's not agricultural work. I've talked with the folks at Maine, and they're like, call us back when you're bigger and you have a store. We just market everything through a CSA, so it's pretty simple. Overtime, it's basically just, as far as I know, we just add in a different column. I know you don't have to I know in Maine at least, you don't have to pay time and a half for overtime, but I know we do here. So that's really just an added column in that, and it's a different, it's the time and a half wage. It just goes into the gross wage and gets deducted from in the exact same way. And then I know where I live, we don't have local taxes. I think Marie was saying New York and California, maybe that's a more common scenario. I don't know what that's like, so I'm not dealing with it. So that's not what's here. That was really it. I mean, I know it's not the most robust platform, and there is some kind of analog components to it, but on a bi-weekly basis, just time-wise, like I can do payroll for 4 people in about 15 minutes. And then there's that time at the end of the year to do all the forms. And then, so if your operation is something comparable to this simplicity, I'd recommend giving it a try. You feel free to reach out if you have questions or edits, or if you want to tell me how wrong I'm doing it. I think you're probably right, but it's working for me so far, so I hope it helps you.
Incredible, Jeff. Thank you. So well organized, and how generous that you're sharing that spreadsheet. That's so helpful.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, you're getting comments in the chat. Brenda said, we struggled through making a version of this spreadsheet from scratch before finding this webinar, and it's such a huge help to know we've gotten most of it right. Thank you so much for sharing the resources. You're getting some other thanks too. Any questions for Jeff while we have him here?
I have a question. And Jeff, thank you. This is what I've been looking for as I look. I'm hiring a first seasonal employee and wanted to be able to do it by myself, but hadn't yet found any resource to help me. So this is terrific. Thank you. The question that I have is, if my apprentice is coming from out of state and it's a seasonal employee, do I do state withholding for the state that the farm is in, or the state that she is from?
I think it is from the state that the operation is, where they're being paid from.
Okay.
I'm not 100% on that, but I know it was complicated early on. I was living in Maine and farming in New Hampshire on rented land, and had an employee in New Hampshire, and then they were, I'm pretty sure I botched something, but I think it was as simple as the farm itself was in New Hampshire, so it was, but the legal entity was in Maine. Yeah.
Okay.
It's tricky.
All right. Thank you.
And as far as farmers market employees go, with those, how would those be logged differently as opposed to a farm employee?
Um, I it's as far as I understand it, it's a matter of those hours get logged differently, and those hours are subject to unemployment tax, which is not a withholding that comes out of payroll. That's an additional tax that comes out of that's just paid by the employer. Um, I've glanced at it just to try to be um, aware of it before this. It looks like it's about 6% of wages go to that if necessary. So it's not necessarily insignificant, but yeah, something to consider.
Thank you.
And some of the nitty-gritty legal questions may be good for next session in a month because we're going to have some legal experts on the line then. Any other questions for Jeff while we have him here?
I can't believe you folks are still up talking about spreadsheets.
You brought it to life, Jeff. I mean, I'm really happy we met you. This is really great, and I can tell you put some great effort into this presentation. It's very clear. Appreciate that. Noting that the links to new employer cheat sheet and the presentation are not live for us. Hopefully, we can get them.
Yeah, I imagine somehow this would be different. I can post those in the chat.
And even if you don't figure, I guess that probably is the solution, but we'll be emailing everybody who registered some resources. So if there's anything that you need to figure out offline, we can always get that out to folks too.
Yeah, give me just a second and I'll put that in the chat. For some reason, I was thinking that you might be able to click on links for the spreadsheet, but and these are really just the new employee thing is just a cheat sheet I put together for a friend who was thinking of hiring people for the first time this year and was intimidated by it. Rightly so.
Well, I think you've given people hope that it's doable.
Yeah, so there's the link for those two. There's the link for that presentation that I just gave. And then the new employee cheat sheet.
Amazing.
Keep in mind that I'm a farmer. Like those, I'm not the legal person in all of this. So these are potentially incomplete.
All right. Well, unless anyone has any final questions, Jeff, you are getting some love in the chats. People are very grateful. So, yeah, thank you so much for making the time, putting the effort into that presentation. And yeah, it's very, very useful information for folks, very empowering. So, yeah, thank you all who joined and asked good questions. And I hope you found something helpful in this workshop. And when you do log out, you'll get that brief survey. If you don't mind taking 4 minutes or so to just answer those questions, it helps us out. And maybe we'll see you in a month for our next one. I don't know, Jeff, if you want to plug anything related to the farm, if anyone's in your region. I know that your seedling sales and people can start registering in February or whatever, but
Yeah, I mean, we've got a vegetable and flower CSA coming up. Registration is opening this weekend, so this is launch week, and then yeah, seedling sale. And another month opens up. We'll start taking orders online.
nice. All right, I'll put the website I just put in the chat. Oh, so did Sydney. Thank you, Sydney, for all your help managing the chat and everything else. And thank you all for participating. Great to have you here and best of luck with all your growing endeavors. And I hope to see you again soon. All right. Thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate that. That was awesome. Well done. Hi, Liv. Liv, I think I need to respond to an email from you.
Oh
I'm gonna
yeah,
hit.
no worries.